to the 2022 Shakespeare Theatre Conference in Stratford, Canada. This year's theme is Shakespeare in a Changing World. In my presentation today, I'll be talking about interfacing Shakespeare in the era of COVID-19. And I use the theory of interface to analyze performances of Shakespeare in the virtual world. On Shakespeare's birthday in April 23rd, 2020, at the height of the pandemic, Canada's Stratford Festival kicked off their online film festival with artistic director Anthony Simolini's 2014 film Lear, which became their most watched video with 85,000 viewers. By the end of 2020, Stratfest at Home has attracted 2 million viewers from 103 countries. This is no small feat. The pandemic has been a watershed moment for the performing arts. Before the public health crisis shut down theater, live performances used to be distinguishable from film and television. Live theater used to be a synchronous communal affair taking place in an architectural space, while performances on private screens are thought to be more synchronous, intimate, and individuated. Theater with modern playgoing conventions may have a temporarily dampening effect in that audiences in formal indoor venues generally do not yell disapproving or appreciative comments during performance. In contrast, screened performances, film or digitized stage productions can invite more intimate and immediate, if not voyeuristic, reactions in verbal or textual forms, since the audiences are physically separated from the space where dramatic action takes place. The idea was that film was more editorialized as a medium, and that live performance was distinguished by its cachet of being ephemeral and irrecoverable. However, these distinctions are going away, because more and more theater and filmic performances are mediated by the same screen interface. In the case of Shakespeare, the screen interface frequently evokes and reframes other media, including the interfaces of the codex book, television programming, and live or pre-recorded theatrical events, just as the liberation of writing from the book in digital culture has changed the way we make writing perform. The interface of the screen gives the concept of performance new synchronous and asynchronous meanings. Due to lockdown orders and restrictions on travel as public health measures, audiences now trapped at home look to streaming to engage with Shakespeare as familiar classic. The pandemic has led to a proliferation of born digital and digitized archival videos of Shakespeare in Western Europe, Canada, the UK, and the US. Key players include the Berlin Ensemble, La Comédie Française, the Globe Theatre in London, the Royal Shakespeare Company, National Theatre, Stratford Festival in Canada, and the Folger Theatre in Washington, D.C. Digital streaming, live or pre-recorded, has helped Shakespeare go viral on a global scale. While the airborne virus has unmoored common assumptions about performance spaces, it has also ushered in new opportunities for artistic creativity. Theater director Erin Mee writes optimistically that digital theater has enabled artists from around the world to gather in virtual spaces, playing to international audiences rather than to people who can get to a particular piece of real estate. Indeed, thanks to Zoom, TikTok, and other platforms, any performance is now potentially a global event that links any number of localities. For instance, in 2020, Creation Theatre and Big Telly Theatre promoted their participatory performance of The Tempest with the tagline, live, interactive, and in your living room, anywhere on Earth, a brave new world. This is one of several examples of digitally facilitated interactive performance. The Royal Shakespeare Company took digital performance one step further by enabling live audience interaction with the actors through the screen as interface. They created a virtual habitat for characters mediated entirely by digital avatars within a computer-generated forest screen. In March 2021, as COVID vaccines were rolling out across the world, but restrictions against live entertainment remained in place in most countries, the RSC launched a live production entitled Dream, where audiences interacted with actors digitally. The locality of this avatar-led digital performance is ethereal in that there is no physical stage set or ephemeral location. This unique locality provides important contrast to the stage and screen localities we have analyzed so far. Using live capture and gaming technologies, the camera takes online audiences through a long corridor backstage and on stage before going into a virtual reality environment inspired by A Midsummer Night's Dream. The actor, who is not yet in character, speaks into the camera to address the audiences directly. Once we're transposed into the fantastical forest, the movement of fairies generate live sound and music. Cobweb, for instance, is represented as close-up shots of Maggie Bain's staring eyeball. Wearing motion capture sensors over her suit, Ian Williams is transformed into Puck, a figure that wanders the night as an assemblage of pebbles in the shape of a human body. Audiences follow them through computer-generated forest landscapes, which carry humanist, environmentalist messages, but is also disassociated from the human because of the abstract figure made of pebbles. The RSC stream thrives on hybrid fluid localities, both analog and digital. After the forest is destroyed by a storm, the audiences are jolted out of the digital world into reality in the motion capture studio. A lonely, weakened Puck kneels on the floor, symbolizing actors' plight of performing in isolation during the pandemic. The seamless transition from actors' digital avatars to their somatic presence in the small black box theater fuses the paratextual performance with a series of interconnected ethereal spaces for performance and cultural signification. The novel concept of a collaboratively constructed fictional and social space drew a large following across the globe. During the post-show talkback, questions came in from all over the world, from as far as Melbourne. On Tuesday, March 16, 2021, more than 7,000 ticket holders logged on to watch the show live. Some of them used the interactive feature by clicking on firefly icons to light up the path for Puck by throwing balls of light across the screen. The fireflies, however, were ornamental as they did not have any direct impact on the performance of Puck's movement. The problem is likely one of scale, as noted by Benjamin Broderick. With hundreds of viewers firing the fireflies, the forest floor was soon coated with illuminated orbs. Audiences lost personal connection and interest when it was impossible to know which fireflies they had sent Puck. It should be noted that the cast attempted to create bonds with the audience before and after the show by showing not their avatars but their human faces. The audience's own subjectivity is also disembodied, just like that of the actors, using motion capture technologies to translate their somatic presence into digital avatars. The digital performance does not so much replicate in-person theatrical experience as it enables an experiential and affective quality on personal electronic devices for private consumption. Blurring the boundary between film and theater, the RSC dream is detached from the palpable bodily presence of actors. The highlight was the show's global reach. The global visibility and huge turnout were welcome news for the RSC, but the technological wonders failed to woo some critics. The New York Times called it a small copse of some really lovingly rendered trees. The Guardian acknowledges the technology could well be a new arrow for the quiver of live theater, while critiquing the show's lack of an emotional dimension. The audience's frustration came from, ironically, the extra-textual intrusion into the playing space, a space that, in the mind of audiences accustomed to naturalist theater, should be cordoned off, sealed off, free from contaminant from the audience's world. As liberating as the computer-generated dream world may be, it collapsed upon itself due to audience participation, even when their participation was invited by the design of production. So, the key takeaway from digital theater in the era of COVID are expanded notions of liveness and site-specific epistemologies. The site of live performance is distinct from the site where at-home audiences experience that performance. So it's mediated by technologies of representation and by the computer screens. The notion of performance site is no longer tied to a brick and mortar building. Financial gains remain ancillary to online performances during the pandemic because not all productions translate well to digital streaming. The theater's global digital footprint is a symbolic means to connect with the patrons and to maintain the company's cultural capital and cultural relevance. What is reparative about this digital performance space, though, is its capacity to strengthen human connection that has been lost to the pandemic. More importantly, the RSD dream is a rare specimen of a performance with the locality that is shaped digitally by the players and playgoers alike. Taking the concept of audience participation to a new level, the RSD's dream reflects Emmanuel Castell's theory that space is the material support of time-sharing social practices, namely practices that are simultaneous in time. Audiences located across the globe help the actors shape the digital dreamscape synchronously. The RSD amplified the fluid nature of the fairies world in Shakespeare and used that as a foundation for an audience-actor co-constructed social space. Even as some audiences were disappointed by the experimental and allegorical nature of the production, the digitally generated forests mark a new chapter in theater history because the forests are unique in each day's presentation, which of course is impossible in a physical stage presentation because sets are expensive and time-consuming to build. When it comes to born digital performances, it is not poetic license, but rather the director's mouse and audience's internet bandwidth that give local habitation to the airy nothing of fairies, as we learn in A Midsummer Night's Dream. Shakespeare has evolved from a cultural nomad in the past centuries to a digital nomad in the 21st century. Shakespeare has been transformed from a body of canonical works to a digital nomad whose livelihood depends on commissions online and who works from any number of physical locations. At the center of this transformation is the digital video. The digital video as an interface gained increased significance with the outbreak of COVID-19. Artists and fundraisers tapped into digital video to maintain their visibility and increase the art's relevance to society. Their focus turned from playgoers in the physical playhouse to at-home audiences around the world. Some companies released pre-recorded performances on a time-limited basis, on pre-scheduled intervals to drum up excitement. The sense of exclusivity paralleled the ephemerality and limited availability of live theater. Some events were free. Others sold tickets at a fraction of the price of live shows. In rural Virginia, the Blackfriars Playhouse, part of the American Shakespeare Center, moved their 2020 season online through their proprietary streaming platform called Blackfriars TV. The pandemic has caused grief and damage to social infrastructures, to the theater industry, but it has also helped a few theater companies reach mass global audiences on an unprecedented scale. By May 18, 2020, The London Globe already gained 1.9 million viewers on their YouTube channel, which was cited by Neil Constable, chief executive of the Globe, as evidence of, quote, the huge appetite for culture at a time of national crisis. And this was used as evidence when the Globe bid for support from the UK's Department of Digital, Culture, Media and Sports during the lockdown. The Globe is unique among British theatres in that it had a predominantly international tourist audience even before the pandemic. Theatre seating capacity was no longer a concern. The Donmar Warehouse Coriolanus, directed by Josie Rourke, starring Tom Hiddleston on National Theatre at Home, attracted more than 500,000 views and raised $20,000 between 4th and 11th of June 2020. Significantly, this was a 2013 rather than a new production that the organizers brought online during the pandemic. The number of online participants far exceeded the number of audiences a live production could ever reach within the same 1 week period. The Donmar Auditorium has only 251 seats. Even the National Theatre has a total of only 2,417 seats across its 3 venues. While in the 1990s, audiences typically encountered Shakespeare for the first time through film or live theatre, in our times, the initial encounters occur predominantly on digital platforms in the form of video clips, memes, and quotes. The pandemic has highlighted the importance of networks of instantaneous cross-references as well as localized embodied knowledge. I would like to conclude by saying that the interface-driven screen culture in our days has decentered Shakespeare's and the classics' singularity. Thank you for joining us at the 2022 Shakespeare Theatre Conference in Stratford, Canada. Have a wonderful day.